Right? So we have all these passive formulations. We don't see it because we don't have to see it. Like I said, it's not going to be on the test. On the other hand, people of color are going to have to learn what white folks think is important. If people of color don't learn the stuff that white folks think is important knowledge, they're done. Because that will be on the test. In fact, that's going to be the test, That's why people of color are going to have to learn, white literature, white theater, white poetry, white art. I know, we don't call it that. That's sort of the point, right? When your stuff is the norm, when your stuff is the stuff that's considered normal and normative and everybody else's stuff gets compared to it, you don't have to racially designate where it came from, right? You don't have to call it white literature. You can just call it literature. You don't have to call it white theater. It's just theater. Poetry. Art. This is why in the States, we don't have Surprise White History Month, because we have several of them. We've just given them these very tricky names so as to cover up what they really are, names like May and June and July and August. So to be a member of the dominant group is to not have to know any of that. The same thing is true for gender, right? I mean, do men have to know what women experience in terms of sexism? Of course we don't, right? I mean, I have 2 daughters, a wife I love, my mother. The 4 most important people in my life are all women, but I don't have to know anything about their experiences with, I better know something or I'm gonna be in trouble, but I don't have to. I don't have to in order to be considered functional. I could be oblivious to that and still be considered functional and competent, not by my wife, but by a lot of other people. Right? I don't have to know what women experience. And if I do know, it's probably because why? Because I listened to a woman tell me, and I chose to believe her and to assume that maybe she knew her life better than I knew her life. Imagine. Right? Not a very radical concept, but apparently we don't want to assume that a lot of times. We would rather, as men, assume that women are overwrought and over-emotional, or, of course, what we really know, hormonal. Because according to men, not science, but some dudes, women are the only ones who have hormones. Did not know that. But it's true. Men, testosterone does nothing to us. But estrogen will jack you up. So men don't have to know any better. Straight folks don't have to know, and cisgendered folks, which is the term, for those of you who are not familiar with it, the opposite of transgendered is cisgendered. So for those of us who are straight or cisgendered, we don't have to know what LGBT folks experience in terms of straight supremacy, do we? We really don't, right? If we know anything about it, it's probably only because someone in our life who's lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgendered told us. And we chose to assume that maybe they also know their lives better than we know their lives, but on an even more basic level, so we can all get our head around this and realize that I'm not really trying to be hypercritical. I'm just trying to say what's obviously true. Think about how you got into this room tonight. I don't remember how I got in here. It's not because I have a particularly bad short-term memory. I did not take Ambien before I walked in, right? It's for one very simple reason. I'm an able-bodied person, at least temporarily so. If we live long enough, we're all likely to have some form of disability or infirmity. But as a temporarily able-bodied person, I am able to come and go as I please without giving a whole lot of thought, to how I'm going to get into the room and how I'm going to get out. And if there's a fire, God forbid, will I be able to escape? And how much time do I need to leave between getting from the green room, to out here to the podium and all of that? Those are things that I don't have to sweat. And the fact that I don't think about them doesn't make me a bad person, right? It says nothing about my character at all. It says a lot about my privilege, right? It doesn't say anything. It doesn't make me intentionally oppressive to the disabled, that I don't think about what they would have to think about by definition. But it does mean what? I've got a really big blind spot around ableism because I can have it. I'm allowed to have it. Just like as a man, I'm allowed to have that blind spot around sexism and patriarchy. As a white person, I'm allowed to be oblivious to racism and white supremacy, which is to say that if we want to know if oppression is operating in our communities, We have to ask those who were the targets of that oppression because they are in the best position to know. If I were to step on your foot in a cafeteria line getting food, it would be sort of silly for someone to come up and ask me how it felt. And then when I said, I didn't feel anything, they would say, well, good, nothing happened. But that's sort of the way we deal with these issues like racism. So we have to be open to hearing the truth that frightens us because it challenges us. I mean, the reason it's so challenging is because most people are pretty good people. And the problem with that, if there is one, is that when you're a good, caring, basically compassionate person and you learn of injustice that you yourself are implicated in some way, if only indirectly by virtue of receiving certain privileges and advantages from the society that creates that injury in the first place, once you find out you're implicated in that as a good, compassionate person, you feel like you're on the hook, and that's scary, right? Because you only got 24 hours in a day, so, oh my God, how can I do, oh my God, this is terrible, I have to do something, but that's frightening, and it puts us at risk, and so I think in order for us to really understand the importance of doing that work, even when it is frightening, we have to understand the personal impact it's having on us. We have to take it out of the realm of the abstract for a minute, and out of the realm of the analytical and the intellectual and the academic, and just bring it down to the real human level.